How's it going, everybody? And thank you for joining me on Out of the Boat Throws. So we're gonna go ahead and change the spark plugs on my 2010 RAV4 here. So first thing we need to do is just go ahead and remove the valve cover, or the cover for the spark plugs and everything. Just a cover they use just to make sure you don't see all of this. You want to also make sure you have everything ready so you're not hunting everything down. So I've got my socket wrench here. 10 millimeter in order to remove the bolts on the coils, an extension to get to the spark plug. I also have the spark plugs here. It is a 4-cylinder, so I just got 4 spark plugs. The manufacturer recommends for this vehicle to use iridium plugs, so I just went ahead and got the same ones that they recommend. If you downgrade, you'll actually lose some performance, so it's not really worth the money saving because it's not going to give you the same gas mileage and performance that your vehicle should have. And there's not really any reason to upgrade them because you'll end up, unless you're doing like a high performance vehicle or race application, it's not going to really show you any more performance other than what the manufacturer already built the car for. This car is coil on plug, so each individual cylinder has its own coil, and that way it's not running off of like a distributor pack or a coil pack that's actually going to multiple cylinders. Went ahead and also got some anti-seize for the threads for the spark plug and some dielectric grease to go inside of the boot just to create a better connection and remove any moisture possibilities or anything like that. Next thing you want to do is go ahead and wipe down any dirt or anything that's built up on here. That way you don't end up with any dirt going inside the cylinder while you're changing the spark plugs or anything like that. We'll go ahead and remove the bolt here. And then on each spark plug, depending on what manufacturer and the size and everything, they're going to take different sockets in order to remove them. So for the coils, you just go ahead and pull them straight out. And you will want to check the manufacturer recommendation for when to replace these. Usually they last a pretty good amount of time. But if you start to see any performance issues or you're getting any codes, you might want to go ahead and replace these as well. So go ahead and try and remove the spark plug here. Normally when you're changing spark plugs, you would want to go ahead and like finger tighten them when you're putting them back in. But because of the length on here, I'm not going to be able to do that. Alright. So I don't exactly have the proper socket here, which would have a rubber grommet inside of it in order to grab the boot or the spark plug. So I'm going to try and use just this towel here, see if we can't get it. We don't want to shove that in there actually. Try and wedge this down in here, see if we can't get it to grab the spark plug. almost had it. There we go. So we got the spark plug out. It doesn't actually look too bad. The car's about a little over 100,000 miles. I think it's 111,000. Most applications recommend that you change these about every 100,000 miles. Probably waited a little bit longer, but it's not a big deal because as you can see, they weren't too bad. Go ahead and wedge a little bit more towel in here, see if we can't get these to stay in place. Okay. So you want to go ahead and just apply a little bit of anti-seize to them. You don't need a whole lot, just like a little bit. And then go ahead and rub that down into the threads. I am going to go ahead and just do these with just the extension and not put the socket wrench on until they're bottomed out. It just reduces the risk of any cross threading or anything like that. If you do feel it bind up, just back them out and try again. And a lot of these plugs are pre-gapped, so they're pretty much ready to go. You do want to double check the manufacturer spec and just make sure that they're actually right, because every once in a while they can, during like shipping and everything, they can actually get moved just a bit. And you also want to inspect the electrode and just make sure there's no damage to the plug before you install them. So that should be about it right there. All right, looks like everything should be good. You just go ahead. Oh, we're going to put the dielectric grease in here. And again, you don't need a whole lot, and you can actually put this right into the coil. Should be about it. And you just go ahead and squeeze it right in there, and then just put these right back on top. Go ahead and replace the bolt. Just go ahead and make sure you keep track of which ones you did already. That way you're not forgetting and removing spark plugs, and since you've already installed them. And when you do replace the spark plug, I like to choke up on the wrench. That way I'm not over torquing them by going all the way at the bottom. Just kind of right underneath where the ratcheting piece is. That way you don't do too much, because you don't need to tighten them too much. They just need to be bottomed out and tight enough in there so they're not allowing air to come through. So now that that one's changed, all of the other cylinders take the exact same procedure. If you do have a 6-cylinder, I mean, if it was a 6-cylinder in here, it'd probably be a lot larger. So you might have some complication getting to some of the back spark plugs, especially since this is transverse mounted. You might need to use like a swivel or something in order to get to them and get them out. Sometimes on 6-cylinders, you can actually rotate the engine by removing the top mounts if it has them, and you can get to them on the back. But since this is a 4-cylinder, it makes it really easy to go ahead and change everything. But other than that, procedure is exactly the same. So as long as you follow the same steps through each spark plug, you shouldn't run into any issues. And then again, just make sure that you're not over tightening them, because you could actually break them off, and then you have a really hard time, especially with how deep these are, getting that spark plug out and replacing it with a new one. Sometimes you cross thread these by not making sure that they're going in smoothly, and you just use the wrench to tighten them. Make sure you don't use any power tools when you do this, because that would make it really easy to damage everything. If for some reason you do end up cross threading, they do make some kits in order to re-thread the cylinder. That's actually not something I would recommend, but on the fly you can get it done. Other than that, you'd actually have to take the head completely off and have that remanufactured or replace it with a new one. That gets really expensive, so make sure that when you do this, you're taking your time, you're paying attention to what you're doing. Otherwise, you could actually damage it. But it's pretty simple to go ahead and do this all yourself, and it saves you a lot of money and time just, doing in your own driveway or something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and just finish it with the one spark plug, and that way you guys have an understanding of what it takes in order to do this. I don't really need to show you the other ones. I am going to go ahead and replace them as well, because you want to make sure you replace every single one when you do a tune-up on the car. But other than that, it's just the exact same thing, just over and over again for all 4 cylinders. All right, thank you guys, and have a good one.